At Fifth Third Bank, we exist to create success.
We exist to create success.
To create success.
So over the past 10, 15 years, as we grew and became a major national player in commercial banking and canvassed our footprints and the communities, we quickly realized that there were parts of our communities that needed financial support. And I'm glad that we accomplished what we targeted a number of years ago and got to $32 billion.
When you think $32 billion, you think, wow, that's a lot of money. And yes, it is. But the need within our communities is just so great. Our success as an organization is incumbent around our community success.
Fifth Third Bank has been a supporter of NHS for decades. And this 4-year, $32 billion Fifth Third commitment to neighborhoods and communities strengthens our partnership in many new and innovative ways. Fifth Third Bank became a member of our 2017 loan pool, providing mortgages to over 250 first-time homebuyers. And NHS of Chicago administered a Fifth Third Bank grant program and created another 100 new homeowners.
So one of the things that I'm most proud of is the fact that we created an environment where businesses would be able to thrive. So we invested in funds that not only provided access to capital, but also provided technical assistance that allows small businesses to be able to work on their business and to grow.
We are a nonprofit community development financial institution, a CDFI. Like many other CDFIs, we are dedicated to improving the access to capital for small businesses, particularly those small businesses located in low-income communities or owned by women and people of color. Our partnership with Fifth Third Bank has really helped CRF fulfill on our mission. We're truly grateful for the partnership with Fifth Third Bank. From all of us at CRF, thank you, Fifth Third. Thank you for believing in us. Thank you for investing in people and in communities.
I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone at Fifth Third Bank for your continued investment in Detroit. Fifth Third has been a tremendous partner with a true commitment to Detroit, a commitment it made clear in 2016 when you moved your headquarters from the suburbs here to downtown Detroit. We've seen a major shift within the corporate community towards investment in our neighborhoods, and Fifth Third has been a leader here as well.
Over the past year, we have seen a tremendous amount of need in our community around financial education, empowerment, and supporting Black and small businesses. With Fifth Third's support, we have been able to support 30,000 people this year. That is double the amount of people we've served last year.
I have had the pleasure of working with the Community and Economic Development team at Fifth Third Bank to provide digital, financial, and entrepreneurship education to students and community-based organizations across Fifth Third Bank's footprint. Fifth Third Bank partnered with EverFi in 2017 to power Finance Academy, which empowers high school students with financial and entrepreneurial skills. Finance Academy has reached over 453,000 students and has provided over 1.1 million hours of learning. At EverFi, we are incredibly proud of our partnership with Fifth Third and the meaningful impact that we have had in the community with students.
I also was inspired when I saw how Fifth Third Bank reached out to help one of our city's most well-known historic small businesses, Hot Sam's Clothing Store. Fifth Third was able to help Hot Sam's reopen, just in time to celebrate the company's 100th year in Detroit.
After I graduated from Florida A&M, I started the IT Leadership Program. It's a 2-year program that rotates through different areas in the IT organization at Fifth Third Bank. After graduating from the program, I placed out into a transformation coordinator position with intelligent operations. Having attended an HBCU, it's been a great opportunity to go back and recruit students that are just like me for Fifth Third Bank.
At Fifth Third Bank, we're really lucky to have great community partners that trust us. That trust is a two-way street. And I'm committed to ensure that that trust is never misplaced.
And I would hope that our next efforts, whether it's the second step and third step and the fourth step that comes after that, will only enhance this type of commitment in our interactions with our communities.
Going to go straight into the panel. We've got a dynamic group of ladies here with us today that I'm excited for you guys to get the opportunity to hear from. And so we'll get started. I'm going to start with asking a question of Susan from NeighborWorks. So we can't talk enough about the state of the economy or the housing gap without addressing the impact of COVID-19. We know that nearly 16.5 million renter households have at least one worker in an industry likely to be immediately affected by efforts to flatten the pandemic curve. That means nearly 50 million people who live in a renter household are likely experiencing immediate job or income loss. So what work has NeighborWorks done to help homeowners and renters during this pandemic?
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you to NMCRC and Fifth Third for this opportunity to speak about something very key in this world today. So we talk about the pandemic, but I want to remind people that is the pandemic of the day. There are disasters every day and every year that impact people. It's just that this one is different in that it's in every industry, it's in every part of the country, and very few people are immune. And so when that happens, the first thing we, NeighborWorks America, focus on is the housing part of the community. Because what we focus on is providing flexible funding into communities through our 240 NeighborWorks organizations that were created in your community. They're in every state, DC and Puerto Rico. And what we find is that there is a massive shift from the focus of some of these not-for-profits and what their core mission was to address the needs in the community that may not have been part of their mission. So for example, there are neighborhoods now that have become food deserts. And so how do I, if I'm focused on senior housing, shift to that? Well, you have to, because you can't fix one without the other. And it really speaks to the longer conversation that we are trying to have in the world about you can fix my food issues, you can educate me, you can protect me, but if I don't have a place to live, it is all for naught. And so they are inherently tied together. And so one of the things is having these conversations that tie health and housing, that tie education and housing together, and getting some of those organizations to work with us. Because the mission is to allow people to live in affordable homes, improve their lives, and all of that equals strengthening community. And one of the things you said early on, Stephanie, is everybody wants a place to live. If you look on those slides that you talk about, it's not just people who are in low to moderate income census tracts or neighborhoods or Black and brown communities that have a need for housing. Everybody has a need for housing. And so the desire is to figure out how we make it affordable and meet you where you are. Give them the technical assistance and education that they need to do that. And so we are working with these community groups in our network to ensure that what the community needs in the moment in order to stabilize the house and the community, whether it be food, whether it be policing issues, which is all part of community, whether it be education, that we figure out how to help with that so that when this does pass, and it will, we have not lost housing stock, which is what our greatest fear is right now.
Yeah, great. Great comments, Susan. You know, one of the things that when I think about COVID, you know, I wonder how the banks are actually responding. We're well positioned to help support our communities during this time. And so I'll ask Jill, you know, what has Fifth Third done to assist impacted customers during this time? You know, one thing that has been well documented is that minority segments of the population have been significantly impacted and disproportionately impacted in this pandemic. And so just want to hear from you regarding what Fifth Third's response has been to really support customers during this time.
Sure. Thanks, Stephanie. Fifth Third felt and recognized early that unstable environments like this really require us to jump in and help our customers. One of those ways, really making sure that our doors are open and available for our customers when they need us the most. So we were very quick to identify ways to create a safe environment for both our employees, but also our customers to keep coming and calling on us when they needed us most. So, that was one of our first responses. But also as this trailed on, and it's continued trailing on, so hopefully that trend reverses. But there were people that have mortgages with Fifth Third that, had income issues, weren't able to make their payments. And we did proactive outreach and also allowed our customers to reach out to us online through a digital platform in order to explore their options, but also correspond back and forth with our agents at their convenience. We tried to make that as convenient for them through the stressful time that they were going through. And then as we worked through this somewhat recovery in the bubble, we've done proactive outreach to over 34,000 customers who were in a forbearance program and contacted them to make sure that we knew what situation they were in, whether they had been able to get back to employment or if they were still having some trouble, and then make sure that they knew what their options were and were informed so that they could make the best choice for them.
Great. So according to the Urban Institute, the housing supply has dropped significantly and has led to an affordability crisis, especially at the lower end of the market. Eva, I'll ask you, how is Fifth Third addressing the housing affordability issue?
So thank you for the question. So the Urban Institute does a really great job of framing the issue. Faster appreciation for low home prices has exacerbated income inequality. In fact, they go on to say that the faster rise in low home prices hits lower wealth or income homeowners and renters specifically the hardest, right? As low home prices rise, home buyers with lower incomes, they have trouble finding affordable homes, so they remain in rental markets, driving up rents and increasing the demand for the price of rental housing. So let's acknowledge that home ownership should be the goal for Black and Latino families, and we know that that helps with building wealth. However, we also know that families, it takes time to get them prepared for home ownership. And better access to lasting and affordable rentals can help households save money and get them on a path to home ownership. So I'm going to attack the question from a slightly different angle and talk a little bit about Fifth Third's Community Development Corporation and its activity around preserving and creating more units of affordable housing. Since its inception, Fifth Third Community Development Corporation has invested $4.5 billion in the communities that Fifth Third serves, including over 900 projects that focus on affordable housing, commercial, retail, and historical buildings. Last year, Fifth Third announced a $100 million investment into opportunity zones. Those funds are being used to develop projects in communities, often minority communities, throughout our footprint. This investment represents one of the largest investments made by an institution with a social impact investment strategy in opportunity zones. I'm going to highlight one of those projects. Fifth Third collaborated with National Equity Fund, which is a subsidiary of LISC, to finance the innovative Wilkelman project located in Cincinnati's historic Over the Rhine neighborhood by blending $7.2 million in opportunity zone capitals with more than $11.5 million in equity generated by low-income housing tax credits, new market tax credits, and historic tax credit, right? So very complicated structures. There were multiple partners providing capital and expertise to make this project a success. This would fill a significant housing gap that the private market could not address otherwise. Once it's completed, the project will include 165 rental apartments and 20 buildings scattered throughout the neighborhood, as well as 20,000 square feet of commercial space, which, by the way, there will be a focus on attracting minority-owned businesses to that space. It will be both new structures, preserving existing ones, and will set rents to be affordable to those earning from 50% to over 100% of the area median income. Why is that possible? Why is that important? The Opportunity Zone made it possible to include workforce housing in this development, providing units for middle class and lower income people. The OZ Capital helps solve for what we call the missing middle in the housing market. Many developers avoid these projects because the rent levels can't support what is required to build. So why do we think that workforce housing is important? Vital employees, whether it's teachers, emergency service workers, nurses, retail clerks, many of whom find existing and newly constructed housing is just simply priced beyond their reach, especially in those urban cores near employment centers. Land and development costs are really high, thereby forcing folks to live further out from the core. When people can afford to live closer to their jobs, entire communities reap the benefits. Workforce housing, like in this project, provides quality housing at an affordable price that helps individuals and family actually save money to help them prepare to get on the path to homeownership.
Great. That is really getting at the heart of addressing affordable housing. And so that's a great example of how not only Fifth Third, but also private funders and also other sources of funding actually can work together to address core issues at the local level. And so, speaking of that, Susan, I'll turn it over to you. Narrowing the gap for home ownership or affordable housing doesn't happen overnight or with a single organization. And so be interested in you telling us or sharing with us, what and how, the power of partnerships and your collaborative efforts have really been transformative in our communities, and just share some of those stories or some of those examples of how NeighborWorks has leveraged partnerships to make an impact.
Thank you, Stephanie. The partnerships are the key. We leverage the power of our network and relationships with funders like you, and thank you and Fifth Third for the significant contribution that you made. And I'll speak to a little bit about how that shows up in communities in the power of leverage. And so we have this machine, if you will, that allows us to quickly reallocate funding and address emergency needs for residents and communities. But on the gap piece, again, working with partners, let's be clear. There is a system in place that makes it difficult for groups of people to become homeowners. There is a system in place. And when we get into partnerships such as like what we have with you, and you help us break that system, one of the two biggest barriers we find is access to knowledge on how to start down that path. And that it begins with being a responsible renter. And then the second is, then once you have amassed some savings or you have the education, the second biggest barrier is the down payment. And so particularly in high cost urban locations, if you can be in a 1-bedroom apartment paying $3,500 or $4,000 a month, I can get you into a 3-bedroom home for half that price. So you continue to chip away at people's ability to create savings when the cost of living, even just in rentals, is challenged. And so the gap that we have to continue to fill is one, developing more affordable housing, not allowing the stock of affordable housing we have now to leave the pool and go to investors. And then the second is for people who want to, not everybody wants to be a homeowner, but if people want to have that opportunity, giving them a better glide path by giving them access to these homeownership organizations across the country, such as in our network, and partners like you who fund that we can then get out there and take the significant contribution you gave to us and present that to legislators, other foundations and banks to say, this is the starting, need you to match that, and then here's how many people we can help. Again, you have stable communities, you have no community.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's a perfect example of how you partner. And I will just say thank you to NeighborWorks. It's been a tremendous partnership. We've been able to touch a lot of agencies and individuals across Fifth Third's footprint, and I'm really excited about our continued partnership. So Jill, I'll turn it over to you at this point. How is Fifth Third Bank addressing affordable lending needs for the Black and Latino community?
So we talked a lot about our community commitment, and we embarked on that journey about 5 years ago. And the way that we formulated that was really talking to community partners. So we drew in over 200 community leaders and gathered their feedback and condensed that down into what should our commitment be and what is most needed in our community in order to arrive at what that commitment looked like. And some of the key components of that was really making sure that we're lending in the right areas to the right people. So targeting, our low and moderate income areas, or the individuals that are within our different markets. So we're really proud of the fact that we were able to embark on that. And at the end of this year, and a few weeks from now, is the end of that 5-year commitment period. And we've exceeded that threshold that we were targeting in the beginning, which it wasn't easy, I'll tell you that much. And to be able to reach that many new home buyers and serve their needs it's really important and meaningful work that we felt like was very important. So to be able to reach that threshold of the billions of dollars in lending, and also through our down payment assistance commitment, that was a unique program that we funded. And we were able to serve over 4,400 customers. And, we like to think about not a number, but those are all individuals that we helped with some of the shortfalls that we talked about earlier, where there's not an emergency fund available. We've got so many different stories of individuals that, we were able to help with our down payment assistance program, and the money that they had saved for the down payment that they didn't have to use, they were able to create an emergency fund and have that extra security in their life because of that assistance. So it's been a critical part of making sure that we can reach the individuals that need us most, and who want to become homeowners, like Susan was saying, and have that desire, but might be a little bit short on the amount that they would need to be putting down. So that's kind of the journey that we've been on in order to help in this whole landscape.
Great. So in addition to facing the pandemic, 2020 has been extremely challenging and has brought racial disparity issues center stage. We know there is a gap in homeownership between people of color and white individuals, and homeownership is a key driver to wealth building. So this question is for Susan. How do we narrow the gap, and what work is NeighborWorks doing in the community to address that?
Well, as you said, Stephanie, all financial challenges to homeownership are more acute for certain groups. And when America gets a cold, these groups get pneumonia. And it's the standing programs such what you described, Jill, that do start to make a difference. And I love when you said it wasn't easy, because if it was easy, you didn't make the right decision. When trying to have systemic change like this, it's not supposed to be easy. So we're looking to narrow that wealth gap, again, by focusing on affordability in your living space, whether that be rental or home ownership, eliminating predatory lending practices. And so when we partner with banks like yours, we have an opportunity to tell the group of people that we touch, here is a trusted partner. There is no predatory behaviors there, and they come through our HUD certified lenders. We still see homeownership as one of the best ways to build wealth. And if a Black family loses their home or never buys a home, it greatly impacts their ability to hold generational wealth. And that generational wealth then speaks to how easy is it for you to then get the college education at the college of your dreams? How easy is it for you to move when your neighborhood suddenly as a pandemic or fires, etc. So it's the continued focus on affordability where there is an opportunity and making sure that we are indeed treating the pneumonia that happens in these communities equally across where we see it.
All right, great. And so Jill, kind of keeping to that theme, I want to ask you the question, as the home ownership rates for minorities significantly lag behind the white home ownership rate, how does Fifth Third plan on being a part of the solution?
Well, I think it's really important for us to be part of the solution. And, we've put together a plan similar to when we were addressing this commitment 5 years ago. We've done a lot of legwork over the last, 6 months or so, and recently announced a new commitment that we're embarking on. And so, from a home lending standpoint, what does that mean? For us, it means we're looking at all of our markets and trying to understand where are the areas that we need to make sure that we're addressing homeownership for African American borrowers and reaching new people that aren't homeowners today. So our commitment from a mortgage standpoint and homeownership standpoint is to increase that lending to African American borrowers or customers by 31%. For the next 3 years. And so, a couple of the things that we're early on in this commitment. And like I said, when you're in the beginning, it's hard to figure out your path. And so the path that we're on right now is looking at each of our markets individually and making sure we understand the uniqueness of those markets and what has to be different in our approach. It won't be a peanut butter approach in all of those areas. So that's one path. And then secondly, we're looking at our staffing and making sure that our employee staff represent those communities that we're serving. So, there might be talent out there that's experienced, and we definitely want to make sure that we're engaged with them, but also are there ways to bring additional people of color into our industry and have them be highly successful in a new industry for them. So, and then lastly, we talked a lot about down payment assistance. And for us, that's a cornerstone of how we'll make this happen as well. So we'll be steadfast in that commitment to keep a down payment assistance program for Fifth Third in place. And we're working through the logistics of what that looks like going into this new 3-year period. So that's kind of the approach we're taking right now, Stephanie.
All right, great. So I'm going to expound just a little bit because this is extremely exciting news for us as a bank. We just announced early this week a $2.8 billion commitment. It's called Accelerating Racial Equity, Equality, and Inclusion. And it's focused on really getting at and addressing the core systemic issues that impact Black communities and Black individuals. And so this commitment is focused not only on our customers, but it's also focused on our community and also our employees. And so really excited that our leadership at our organization has been focused on this work and digging into it. We've had a long history of giving back and doing the right things in our community, but this is just one additional way to verbalize our commitment to helping to be a part of the solution. And I'm extremely excited about the work that we're embarking on. It's a 3-year commitment, and this is just the start. We're going to continue to do this work. This is hard work, and so we'll continue to do this work ongoing. But really excited about this commitment, the commitment at the top of the house to support this effort and to make sure that we have all the tools and resources to get it done. And equally excited about the community partnerships that we're lining up with to really ensure that this is not our work alone. We're working with our community in order to ensure that we're able to reach the community, that we're listening to what the core issues and needs are, and that we're able to work together to come up with solutions. And so more to come over the next 3 years as we embark on this work, but really excited about the commitment that we've made and the impact that's going to come from this effort. So,
I have to jump in and say that's fantastic news.
Thank you.
Action is one thing, and it's always appreciated. Money is another. Money and action together with partners. So you've got a very good solution working here, and we're glad to be part of that. So kudos to the executive team. That's a meaningful number, and we look forward to the outcomes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So Eva, I've got a question for you before we turn it over to, because we've got probably about another 15 minutes or so, and we want to make sure that we get to some Q&A from the audience. But to close this portion of the Q&A out, just want you to talk to us about why and how Fifth Third partners with community-based organizations to help narrow the homeownership gaps in the Black and Latino community. I know you do a lot of this work day in and day out, and so just want that to come to life in your response so that people understand how those partnerships are formed and how they result in meaningful impact.
Thanks again for the question. Stephanie, I think you alluded to that while announcing our big announcement around racial equity, which is really partnering with the communities to get an acute understanding of what those local needs are. So I'll talk to you a little bit about how we go about that. So I'll start with, from a big picture perspective, annually, Fifth Third conducts what we call a community needs assessment. So that's an assessment in which we actually go across our whole footprint and we talk to national partners like NeighborWorks, as well as community-based organizations within our region to really give us both qualitative and quantitative feedback data so that we can develop a comprehensive plan on how to attack those issues. We do know that community-based partners play a really important role because they're the experts. We're not, we don't want to come into neighborhoods pushing the Fifth Third agenda. We much rather stand beside a trusted partner that has better reach into those communities. We also know that housing counseling is probably one of the best approach for affordable, sustainable home ownership. So by providing good information and guidance, we know that will help people that are not as familiar with the home buying process get ready. So we work with many agencies that are committed to this work, so both nationally and locally. So on the panel, we've got NeighborWorks as a great example, but we also work with agencies such as NAREB, which is the National Association of Real Estate Broker, or the NAREB Realtist, as well as the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, NAREB. And those organizations are national in nature, but they also have local branches. So they provide us with really good access. So at Fifth Third, we have what we call Community Economic Development Managers, so CED managers, and they're what they call the quarterback of our relationship. So very similar to what you see on this panel today, right? We've got someone from Community Economic Development working with the community partner to really understand what's going on, and then we pull along the rest of the resources from the bank, like our business line partners, Jill here in the mortgage group. They provide the access to capital, really critical resources. There are other things we can bring to the table as well. We do philanthropy. Stephanie just made a big announcement, and a portion of that announcement, that commitment, will be philanthropy. But there are other things. In the beginning of our panel, there was a slide about some of the financial education initiatives that Fifth Third does conduct on a regular basis. So I'll lift up a couple of those things that I think is really important. So we've got our financial Fifth Third kind of Empower You, which is like our curriculum as it relates to financial education. And we can work with community partners on that. We also have what we call our Financial Empowerment Mobile, or really more affectionately known as our e-bus. Our e-bus is a kind of mobile bank on wheels. So it goes directly into those communities, and it has Wi-Fi, it has computer terminals where folks and community partners, we can work together. They can come on, they can pull their credit, they can learn about the home buying process, small business, all those good things. And we're not saying, hey, you've got to come to us, we come to you with our community partner. So I think that's really important to bring up. I also want to talk about a recent example because we are in the middle of COVID. Annually in Cincinnati, we partner with several local organizations on an event called Owning It. It was a huge event. We bring in a lot of community partners together, elected officials, to really talk about how do we get folks into that home buying process. Well, with COVID, there was some conversation about, gosh, should there even be a home ownership month? What's going on? But, our leader, our CED leader in the Cincinnati market, Roy Sutton, said, nope, this is really critical information, and we're going to convert this to an online platform. So in June, we pulled together all the leaders, and I'm going to give you a list, working in the Neighborhoods Organization, the Greater Cincinnati Realtors Association, the Dayton Area Board of Realtors, the Ohio's Realtors Association, and the Homeowner Center of Dayton. We also were supported by the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority and the Alpha Psi fraternity. So we've got all these people together to really hear about, how to purchase a home during the pandemic. What does that process look like? Is it any differently from a financial perspective? What are they looking at? And what does your budget need to look at? So again, all those things. And we got a really, really good push, and we got great attendance because despite the pandemic, people are still moving forward, looking to achieve their dreams through home ownership. We couldn't have accomplished that without our community partners.
Wonderful. That was a lot of partners, and just an example of how when you pull everybody together, the impact that you can have on individuals' lives. And so, and then with COVID, we've all had to be flexible, innovative in our approach to reaching, because the need is great, and actually greater during this time. And so we needed to be nimble, flexible, and try to figure out the best way to still provide services during this time of need. And so that's a great example of how we not only partnered, but also how we were creative and thinking outside of the box to get it done. So we've got some great questions from our audience. And so at this time, I'm going to turn it over. First question is to Susan. And so Susan, someone in our audience said they want to get more knowledge about creating more affordable home ownership. So if you can spend some time kind of talking through that, I'd appreciate it.
So there's a couple of ways to go at it. And the first thing I will tell you is you need political support. Why? Because in pretty much every part of our country, it's the legislature and the local rules who decide where abandoned property goes, decide on the variances for building, decide on the income tax credits. And so I think people underestimate the difficulty in some markets of making affordable development affordable. And if you're not going to get a return on your investment, what are the other reasons we can get people to do this? And it really does start with the legislature. And I also remind people, since we've just come off of an election, all politics really is local. And so it's one thing to have stimulus programs at the federal level. It's one thing to have banks like Fifth Third provide support, but you will be willing to fund a developer doing affordable housing. And wouldn't it be a beautiful thing if he was doing a 100-unit building and was going to dedicate 70% to affordable units instead of 20? Well, how does he make that happen? And it's all the underlying costs. So one of them is start with the political landscape and figure out how you can create more opportunities from these abandoned properties that are sitting on the books of many of these state and counties. The second is to start to work at some of the systemic pieces that are stopping homeownership. And when you look at our realtors, where are they directing people? Are they killing the dream by not showing them that there is affordability? Where are the bank's products? Are there products that are designed specifically for people with a different sort of income and a different sort of credit score? Meaning I've never owned before, I pay everything in cash. That should make me a good borrower. I'm old enough to remember that no credit was better than bad credit. But now you come into some banks, and if you have no credit, you can't get anything at all. So can we translate your proof of paying rent, your proof of paying your utilities, you're going to work every day, as an 800 credit score? And let's talk about that. So the affordable housing piece is you've got to start with the stock. And then once you have the stock, is you have to fight the rules of how we lose them. Go look at your county records and see how many homes were sold either with tax liens that were in affordable markets or were abandoned property that were given to investors. And then ask what those investors did with that. If you think back to New York, and then I'll stop, back in, I think it was the 70s or 80s, they had a wonderful program called Limited Equity Program. And so they would buy these abandoned properties, sell them to a not-for-profit for $1. The not-for-profit would come to somebody like Fifth Third. You'd give me a low-cost loan. I could develop the property and then I'd sell it. And the focus was on mixed-use properties, because then you have businesses in the community and you have 2 to 4 units above. It was a beautiful thing. Where are those across the country now? Who is getting them? So raise your voice. And when they present you statistics, look at the statistics, because one of the things that we're finding is there's bias in the stats. If they didn't do a wide enough ask and survey, then the statistics says, that great quote says, there are lies, damn lies, and then there are statistics. So make sure you understand where the stats come from.
All right, that's a wonderful response. I'll ask this next question that we got from the audience to Eva, and then if based on your response, Eva, I may add a little to it. The audience member made mention of the fact that Fifth Third is only located in 11 states. And they listed it out: Florida, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, North Carolina, Ohio, et cetera. And they just wanted to know if there are any similar thinking banks in California. And so, Eve, I'll ask you to, and then also Susan, if you have any thoughts around that as well, that we can share with the audience.
So I can address that by saying I would say yes as a blanket. So the issue of community development as a whole, especially as it relates to affordable housing, small business development, look, there's no competition in that. The need is too great. We banks, we work really, really well together in this space in supporting organizations that I spoke about earlier. Strategies, whether it be municipal, we come together and we pool our capital together because the need is so great. So I don't know if I can specifically point out any banks. I guess I can point out my former employer, US Bank, who has a really big presence here. But I think just to answer the question, banks really do join hands and pool collective capital just to be a greater part of the solution.
Yeah, and the only thing that I would add to that is one of the things that you could always do is when you reach out to your banks in your local market is to ask to speak to someone in their community reinvestment or community development department, because sometimes it may be about connecting with the right individuals. And so all banks have interest and desire to participate from an investment perspective, from a lending, and also from a service perspective in their communities. There's a law that's called the Community Reinvestment Act that encourages banks to ensure that they are providing lending, investment, and service in low and moderate income communities and to low and moderate income individuals. So I encourage you to reach out to your local banks and ask to speak to someone in their community development or Community Reinvestment Act area, and then you'll get to the right area and they will be able to shepherd you through whatever your interests are or things that you want to discuss around community engagement and involvement. They'd be the right area to start with. All right.
Weigh in, Stephanie, for those of you who we find there's still some intimidation for folks approaching banks. And so if you go to the neighborworks.org site, put in the state that you're looking for. So California, we have huge representation in California. It'll come up with every NeighborWorks organization in California. Pick the one closest to you, go in and meet with one of the counselors, because every single one of them has a roster of banks that have been tested, tried and true, and sometimes very specific programs for either the local community, for the low to moderate income census tract, just for the partnership with them. When I was running NHS of New York City, we had banks specifically working with us, and our job was to bring them these clients. So it is a collective effort. Fifth Third is there on the list, fortunately. Wells Fargo is there on the list, Capital One, Chase, but we need more. Hear me, we need more. But when you go to places like NeighborWorks and you look at who we partner with, that should give you a good sense of all of your business, of where you can be trusted.
All right, wonderful. One last question. We're coming up on the hour. We've got about 4 minutes, but one last question, and I will pose this to either Jill or Eva. They're asking the question, how can we sign up or learn more about Fifth Third's life programs, our Lives Improved Through Financial Empowerment programs? So either one of you can speak to that.
All right. So actually, Eva, I don't know if you have more specific information about on our website where to go, or okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just say definitely visit us at 53.com about us in the community section. It'll start giving you a list of some of the programs and things that we do, and you'll find life there. Also, you'll find in the About Us community section, it'll talk about our community, economic development area, which is the area in which I work, and it can get you to someone that can direct you to what those local resources look like.
There's actual names of the contact people for each market that are in our community development area. And so 53.com, About Us, and the community section, and you'll be able to connect with individuals in your local market to learn more, but also all of the life programs and the more details around the programs are listed on our website. So ladies, this was a great hour. I really appreciate your participation today, your insight, your knowledge, and your expertise. I just want to say thank you for the hard work and the heart work that you do in our communities day in and day out. Our communities need it. I know you enjoy and get a lot out of doing this work day in and day out, but our communities truly do need it, and we do thank you for all that you do. So thank you, ladies, and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.